I want to welcome Berkeley to our Profitable Pursuits. I am so excited for this guest, and it's more of like personally, she's such an inspiration to me. I was just sharing with her right before we hit record that of all the people I was asking to be on in the beginning, she is the only one that we personally work with. And I was like, I need her on our show because she's inspiring. She's a mama, and three times three, mom times three. And she's just like doing life the way I wish more people could and on her own terms. So I'm excited to jump into that. So with that, Berkeley, I want to welcome you, and I would love for you to like introduce yourself, give us a lowdown.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me on and for that kind introduction. You're so sweet. So, yes, I am a business and trademark attorney. I live in South Florida. I have a 7-year-old little boy, and two twin girls who are about 2 months old. So I have my online law firm. I also have a template business, and I work primarily with female entrepreneurs, helping them legally protect their businesses.
I love it. Like I said, we personally use Berkeley, so I can vouch for her services. Years ago, I even bought the contract templates. She just filed our trademark, so we're waiting for that.
Well, they make you wait a while these days.
They do, but that's okay. We got it in, right? Step one is done. So as I was saying, my favorite part about your story is how you do things differently. I think you often share, like, I just didn't want to be that traditional, stereotypical lawyer, I guess, for lack of better words, who's like going into the courtroom. Can you share a little bit about that story?
Sure. So, I mean, I knew pretty early on that I did not want to be like a big firm attorney. In law school, I just, when everyone's really excited about moot court and the law review and all of that, I'm like, I need work-life balance. Like, I want to come home after class and bake banana bread, not like
I
you know,
love that.
talk about the cases. um, so that being said, after law school, I worked for my dad in litigation for about 7 years, just because I could have that work-life balance while still, being an attorney. However, I was in the courtroom. Litigation's very like you're fighting with people. It's very stressful. And I knew pretty early on that that's not what I wanted to do. So I started like a legal lifestyle blog that I wanted to monetize. Turns out I'm not like great at baking banana bread or anything really lifestyle-y, so that didn't take off. But I did meet a lot of women in the online business space while trying to monetize the blog. And I realized that everyone had, questions about like privacy policies and what disclaimers do I need to have on my website and things like that. And then about 2 years ago, I transitioned out of litigation and started my own template shop and law firm. So now I'm doing like the type of law that I love and helping the people, that I enjoy working with, while also having that control over my schedule.
Before we jump into some of the strategies and like how you would credit to having your profitable business, can you talk a little bit about how you're merged into this new online business, how it's changed like your life a little bit or the
Yes.
impact it's had?
I mean, I'll talk about like the pros and kind of be real about the cons.
Yeah.
Like, so pros are obviously like you control your life. You get to choose who you work with, when you want to work, how you want to work. I had twins back in April, and
So cute.
thank you. And if one of them is like having a fussy day or crying, or like I'm having a fussy day because I haven't held them all day, I'll like wear them to my meetings. And normally, I mean, 100% of the time, people are like excited that I bring them on calls. Whereas if I were in a big firm culture, or even like working for my dad in any kind of, professional setting, like traditional professional setting, if you wore like your baby into your meeting, people would just be like, I'm not hiring you.
Can you imagine?
I do this when people have already hired me, by the way. I don't do this on new client calls often. Um, so it's really great in that I have like complete control, like creative control. I work with whoever I want. Set my own schedule. I can work from home. I would say one of the drawbacks is like you don't ever turn off. Like when you work for yourself, it's always there. There's always work to do. And like it's a reflection on you and it's sort of like your baby. So it's not like you can fully ever check out.
Yeah, for
I'm sure
sure.
you can relate to that.
A little bit. I laugh because while we're on different, we have an accounting firm, you have a lawyer firm. Often, I think they're like parallel stereotypical roles, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the old white man, can I say that? Going into the office, right? Like they're
Yes.
stereotypical. So I'm laughing thinking of like bringing my kids when I was in the corporate, like, no,
Right.
I was having a good chuckle. But let's be real, in order to have a thriving business that pays us personally, so we can have those balances, so we don't have to go back into the courtroom or more of a corporate setting, it takes clients. What is your advice to those out there on like how have you been successful in obtaining clients?
So when I first went out on my own, I had my template shop for about 6 months before I opened my law firm. And for the first 3 months, I heard crickets. And luckily, I still had my job, my litigation job. Um, I heard crickets, like, and I had been posting, religiously with like graphics and just nothing. Um, and then I didn't really see a shift until I put my face on the camera and like spoke, and people saw me and could relate to me. Either I met them in person and that no like trust factor happened, or I started doing like stories, I started doing reels. So, like having video content where you're actually speaking, if you're the face of your brand, um, that's when I saw like a big shift in income.
Yeah. I would say I'm really big into like walking outside here and I listen to like random podcasts. And I was listening to a blogging podcast. I'm not a blogger, I'm an accountant. And I don't know if you sponsored it or if they use you, but they're like, and Berkeley, use her templates and blah, blah, blah. And I was like,
Who is this?
she's mine. How is she on this podcast
How am I
too?
on this? Whose podcast was it?
I'll have to pull it up. These two
Please
ladies,
do.
I really like
Oh, yes. Spark Media.
very
I think,
possible. I don't know.
yeah.
It was random for me. I'm not a blogger. I was just
Yes.
listening. I was
They're
bored.
bloggers. Yes.
And I was like, she's everywhere.
I'm glad that they're like affiliates of mine. How great that they're
Yeah. So
so
I
that's
just wanted to
another
like
thing is
piggyback and say like you show up, you're everywhere, and like people connect with you.
well, I mean, it's great to hear that. And sometimes you hear people say, like, most of my clients come from referrals. So I would say, like, having a good client experience and like producing results and like not being a typical lawyer where you don't answer emails for weeks, I'd like to credit that as like people who work with me then tell other people. But I have heard people say, like, I've seen you on podcasts or like I get your ads, so I do feel like it's like a multi-pronged approach that like once it gains traction, then you sort of just have clients coming and you're like, where'd
Yes.
they come from?
Yeah. So obviously obtaining clients is just like one piece of the puzzle to having a profitable business. Do you have any other strategies, tips, or tricks on how you've grown your business or how you've seen others grow their business that you would recommend?
Yeah, I mean, definitely like outsourcing things that take up a lot of your time, but maybe aren't your zone of genius. So I outsource a lot. Um, I have somebody like create graphics for me. I have a paralegal who handles like a lot of the back end stuff in my law firm. Um, I have two virtual assistants who help me sort of with like the daily grind. So definitely like things that used to take up a lot of my time, other people are now doing. So I can focus on things that really like bring in revenue. So like, and things that I can't, like, no one can replace me with. So that's
Very
definitely helped. And it's hard sometimes to like put out that expense before you see things come in. But oh, I would say like the month that I hired a virtual assistant, my revenue like went up. It was like times three that month. So I was like, oh, I'm spending a lot of time sending out contracts and invoices and like things I don't need to be doing. Where if I just spent that time marketing or like networking, you see a bigger return.
um, I'd love to ask this question because it's to me it's fun. So you have been, how long have you been in the lawyer game for?
2014, so
A long
9 years.
time. A long time. And then I was to challenge you to have the success you have today in half the time. Like say you had to start all over and you were to get to where you are today in half the time. Like what are the like first three things you would do? How would you do that?
So one, I would focus on like free social media, like video, reels, stories, like really showing up with free organic content. Um, Two, I would talk to as many people in this space as possible. Like really network. I feel like I was shy in the beginning and didn't really like put myself out there. And now I have no shame. Like I'll cold DM someone and be like, hey, we have a similar audience. Like I'd love to connect, And half the time people respond and you get on a call with them. Like I feel like that's how we connected. It might have
Yeah.
been. Um, and then you have a friend in like the online space and that's how word travels. And that's also free. Like I spent a lot of money up front on like paid social media managers, paid ads, like things that I really didn't need to spend money on, where I could have just done it myself and like more effectively. And then number three, I would say is building an email list. So one thing paid ads has really worked for me with is building an email list. So having like a lead magnet where people sign up for something free and then they get on your email list and then you nurture them. And I have people who join my email list like, in the very beginning, and then they are somebody who like needs a contract bundle and 3 trademarks, and your $1 or $2 lead from 3 years ago is now a $10,000 client. So
Yeah.
it's
Love
those are my
that.
three tips.
Ah, I love it. And it's so true. My favorite part and extremely unexpected for me in the online world is like the friends you make in the online space, like your online friends are some of the coolest people that you never would have met if you didn't like put yourself out there.
I know. And I'm like, I barely see my friends from high school for lunch, but I'm always having these conversations with like people in the online space because, you know, it is a very unique area of work. And if you're in it, you get it. And so it's nice to have people you can kind of like bounce ideas off of that maybe like your, teacher friend from high school doesn't really get.
Yes, amen. Another really cool thing about the internet and the online space is I love the inspiration that you can get. I look at the internet like as positive. There's so much inspiration, so much like, wow, look at what so and so did. And I think that helps inspire me in my business. So I always like to ask guests when they come on, like, what's next for you? Like, what's the next big goal? Like, can we even think about big goals? Are we still in survival because you have brand new babies?
My next big goal is probably like scaling my business. I feel like I've focused, like in my law practice, I used to do kind of an equal amount of contracts, like website policies, sort of like dipping my toe into litigation still, trademarks. And now I really found that I enjoy trademarks the most. Um, all my clients are like happy. They're starting businesses. It's exciting. I feel like I can add value. It's also scalable. So I think really like having, and I have all my systems in place now, and that took a while to get to. So I feel like now is just like scaling, and being able to help like more women at the same time.
I love that. I had the opportunity, our team worked with Berkeley's team. Probably right after you had the twins, we met with Lindsay and she was phenomenal. So we had a wonderful experience. So I cannot say enough high regards to you and your firm, as well as like the inspiration you put out there.
Well,
It's
I'm
really
glad you had a great experience like with my team because I had such a hard time like giving up control, even like letting her do the discovery calls, like the initial call with the client. And I was happy to see like you meeting with her because I'm like, okay, I know her, she knows me. Like if something goes wrong, she'll tell me. But I was happy, like I barely.
no, there was no need. I was like, great, send us the invoice. Like, we're good.
Yeah.
Let's move this on. Move it on. Awesome. Where can people find you? Where do you love to hang out? How can
I'm
people learn?
on Instagram a lot. So at Berkley Sweetapple. My website is berkeleysweetapple.com for my templates, and it's Berkley Sweetapple Law for my law firm. I know, very creative. And then if you need to email me, it's Berkley at berkeleysweetappleLaw.com.
We will connect the websites and the Instagrams down below. I highly recommend it. And then maybe you'll get a peek at those cute little babies she has as well.
Yes, I can't help but
Oh,
post
I
them
love them.
daily.
Oh, I just want to thank you so much for hanging out with us today. And I want to encourage everyone to go on over and give you a follow and grab some templates or contract templates if you need them and trademark your business. Is that what we say?
Yes, trademark your business name before someone else does.
Absolutely. So thanks for hanging out with us today.
Thank you for having me.